Well, I think, essentially professionalism is important because the whole point of professionalism is to get to the top of the occupation ladder. And that's where you get more influence and more impact on society. And how evaluation job is to impact on society. So therefore, that's the first reason why I think it's very important for us to become a profession. We are already the discipline. We are even meta-discipline, and for Michael Scriven, we are the alpha discipline, but we are not yet a profession. I think we should become a profession for that first reason. The second reason really comes from, again, the sociology of the profession. Talcott Parsons viewed the professions as a buffer between the tyranny of the market and the arbitrariness of the state. So really for a modern society, for a democratic society, it's very important to have professions. And I think we should join the rank of the professions. And the third reason perhaps is much more, has to do with self-interest in the sense that professionalization is a competitive business. All professions had to fight their way to the top of the occupation ladder. I think the same thing with us as evaluators. Basically, we have to compete with auditors, management consultants. They are already taking a large part of our market. I think we should fight back, and professionalization is one way of doing it. Well, yes, we gave a lot of thought, and it's of course been a very controversial birth of VPR. But looking again at the literature and the kind of the philosophy of the professions, you find that the only downside of professionalization is monopoly features. And the fact is that the whole point of VPR is that it's inclusive. It's participatory. It does not aim to create a club. And so that's really one important reason why I think it is an instrument of choice. It is not a test. I think it's much better to leave it on the knowledge part of the capabilities framework, to let universities do the testing. And so the other reason is that it's an adaptable approach. And evaluation is such a diverse thing that it's important. The VPR idea is to have the person, each evaluator has to find its own trajectory towards evaluation excellence. And I think the VPR is very adaptable to a variety of evaluation trajectories. And so I think that's why the VPR is a better way to go than credentialing. Also, by being a peer review process, it enhances the social capital of our evaluation community. So I think, the VPR came out of a lot of consultation. I think by iteration we found, I think, what is a good process. Well, for the reviewers, I don't want to teach grandmother to suck eggs, frankly. I mean, because basically the reviewers are experienced evaluators, and the VPR is an evaluative process. Well, in fact, it's a self-evaluation process supported by independent evaluation advice. So my advice, which is obvious, is that really you should not be prescriptive, you should be open, you should be listening, and you should be trying to figure out, using your own experience and sharing your own experience to help, really basically to help find shortcuts towards high quality evaluation and effective evaluation which has an impact. And I think that's one thing. The other thing, which is again quite obvious, is that since the whole concept, the framework of the VPR has to do with the capabilities framework, that you should be familiar with it and think about it. It's a very short, it's one page, but I think a lot of work again went into designing that architecture. You should be familiar with it. And finally, and that is perhaps not as well known, we have guiding principles for VPR. Ideas, UKES, as well of course as the EES, have endorsed these principles, and they are part of the global evaluation agenda. So let me list those things. I've written them down here because they are numerous, but they are all important, and you'll find them in the global evaluation agenda. Voluntariness, autonomy, legitimacy, pluralism, transparency, equity, and finally, quality assurance, because as evaluators, we must always evaluate ourselves.